Hi, it's Sandra from SandraD Imagery, and I'm going to share with you a technique that I use when I'm doing composite imagery using my own photos, and it's the clipping mask. What is a clipping mask? A clipping mask allows me to apply an adjustment layer, for example curves, levels, brightness and contrast, but turning it into a clipping mask which allows me to only make adjustments on the layer underneath the clipping mask. Sounds confusing? Let's dive in and I'll explain what a clipping mask is. So this is my photo that I took in Norway, and it was taken late evening. It was quite moody, very grey, but I also wanted to add a hut. And so I had photographed a hut in New Zealand, and I'll just turn that layer on. Magically, there's my hut. When I photographed this quirky little hut in New Zealand, it was a bright, sunny day. So when you're looking at the background and you're looking at the hut, the light doesn't match. I mean, the hut is so bright, but the mountains in the back are quite dark, and it's got a little bit of a moody feel to it. So what can I do to adjust or blend this hut in with the background? Like anything in Photoshop, you can use different techniques and tools, but I'm going to use a clipping mask for this one. So what I'm going to do is I'll go up and I'll click on an adjustment layer, brightness and contrast. Now, all it is now is an adjustment layer. So if I come over to the left, and I make some adjustments in the brightness, I darken it down. If I bump up the contrast to play with it, I'm adjusting the whole photo, and I don't want that. So I'm going to reset that. What I want to do now is apply a clipping mask. And at the bottom of your properties panel, there's actually a square with a down-turned arrow. One click, that has now turned that adjustment layer, the mask attached to that adjustment layer, as a clipping mask. How do I know that? If I come over here and I'll see there's that down-turned arrow. By applying a clipping mask, it is only going to make the adjustments on the layer underneath. Let's prove that theory and go over and let's just make it brighter or darker. Let's bump up the contrast. Let's see what I get. I'm going to reset that, and let's do that again. I'll play with the brightness and the contrast, and you can see it's only adjusting the hut, not the whole photo, which is exactly what I want, particularly when I'm creating composites. So a clipping mask is a fantastic tool that, if I'm adding in other elements, I would apply a clipping mask to that element that I've added in. As I've mentioned before, you could do it on curves, on levels, you could use it on brightness and contrast, all those adjustment layers. Let's turn that layer off and on. Now, there's no secret formula to trying to blend this hut in with that background. It's an eye thing, and it takes practice just looking at it, knowing what you want to do with your image. Do I want to make it brighter? Do I want to make it darker? My vision for this background and the hut is to eventually turn it into a day to night image. And I've got a tutorial in my Learning Hub on my website, SandraD Imagery, and it shows you how I created this background, the hut, and turned it into a night image. And I go through all the little tips and tricks that I use. So a clipping mask is a fantastic tool to use in Photoshop. Play with it, see what you can create, and have fun.